There is a very good chance that you are pre-diabetic right now and do not know it. Approximately 40% of adults in Western countries are estimated to have prediabetes. Most have no idea. And prediabetes is not simply a warning sign that diabetes is coming. It independently increases your risk of dying from any cause. It accelerates cardiovascular disease, contributes to fatty liver, damages blood vessels, and impairs cognitive function, all while your fasting blood sugar looks completely normal on a routine blood test. My name is Dr. Victor Hayes. I want to explain what is actually driving that risk and what you can do about it, because the people I see who understand this biology make meaningfully different choices than those who do not. The fundamental issue is that we have been told that insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes are simply conditions you manage with medication and minor dietary adjustments. That framing misses the reality of what is happening in your body and why the stakes are genuinely high. Here is the biology you need to understand. Insulin is a hormone produced by your pancreas. Its primary function is to act like a key unlocking your cells, allowing glucose from your bloodstream to enter and be used for energy. After you eat, blood sugar rises, insulin is released, glucose moves into your muscle cells, liver, and fat cells, and blood sugar returns to baseline. With insulin resistance, your cells stop responding properly to insulin's signal. The key still fits, but the locks have become stiff and unresponsive. Your cells are not accepting glucose as efficiently. Your pancreas detects that blood sugar is not falling quickly enough and responds by producing more insulin. For years, often a decade or more, this compensation works. Blood sugar appears normal on tests, but you are living with chronically elevated insulin, and that excess insulin causes serious, widespread damage throughout your body. It promotes fat storage around your organs. It drives systemic inflammation. It disrupts hunger and satiety signaling. It strains your cardiovascular system. It damages the endothelial lining of your blood vessels, accelerating atherosclerosis. And here's the critical part that most people have never been told. By the time someone is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes based on elevated fasting glucose, they have often had insulin resistance for 10 to 15 years. The damage has been accumulating throughout that entire period. The diagnosis is late-stage confirmation of a process that was clinically significant long before it was detected. What drives this? The modern food environment is genuinely engineered to produce it. Ultra-processed carbohydrates, bread, pasta, cereals, pastries, crackers, biscuits, break down into glucose so rapidly that the pancreas must release large insulin surges to manage the result. When this happens repeatedly, day after day across years, cells progressively become less responsive to insulin's signal. Liquid sugar is even more destructive. Fruit juices, soft drinks, sweetened coffees, smoothies loaded with fruit, these deliver concentrated glucose and fructose into the bloodstream without fiber, protein, or fat to slow absorption. The insulin response is immediate and substantial. Repeated daily, this is one of the most efficient drivers of insulin resistance available. Physical inactivity compounds the problem. Your muscles are the primary site of glucose disposal in your body. When you move, your muscle cells pull glucose out of your bloodstream through a mechanism that partially bypasses insulin entirely. When you are sedentary, glucose has nowhere efficient to go. The pancreas compensates with more insulin. Insulin resistance deepens. Poor sleep drives insulin resistance independently. Even a single night of inadequate sleep measurably reduces insulin sensitivity the following day. Chronic sleep restriction sustained over months and years produces compounding metabolic harm. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which raises blood glucose and promotes insulin resistance through hormonal mechanisms designed for short-term physical threat management. When stress is persistent and psychological rather than physical and short-lived, cortisol becomes chronically elevated, and metabolic dysfunction follows. What makes this so difficult to recognize is that most of these are completely normalized in modern Western life. Most people around you eat similarly, move similarly, sleep similarly, experience similar levels of chronic stress. The baseline has shifted so far that what is biologically harmful feels ordinary. And then the food environment, where ultra-processed, calorie-dense products are cheap, convenient, and ubiquitous, while whole foods have become expensive, creates structural barriers that make healthier choices genuinely difficult for many people. This is not a personal failure. It is a consequence of an environment that has been systematically designed to produce metabolic dysfunction. Now, the important part. Insulin resistance is reversible, particularly in its earlier stages. Your cells can regain their sensitivity to insulin. The trajectory is changeable. The foundation of reversing insulin resistance comes down to 4 domains. What you eat, building meals around protein, healthy fats, and fiber rather than refined carbohydrates reduces the insulin burden of every meal. It does not require eliminating carbohydrates. It requires providing context, eating carbohydrates alongside nutrients that slow their absorption and moderate the glucose response. Reducing liquid sugar is probably the single highest leverage dietary change available. How you move. Resistance training builds the muscle mass that is your primary glucose disposal system. Walking after meals, particularly the 15 to 30 minutes after eating, activates muscle glucose uptake through the insulin-independent pathway and blunts post-meal glucose spikes. Movement woven throughout the day, not just concentrated into one exercise session, maintains the metabolic activity that prevents glucose stagnation. How you sleep. 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night is a metabolic necessity. Poor sleep independently drives insulin resistance regardless of what you eat or how much you exercise. Consistent sleep and wake times compound this benefit through circadian rhythm effects. How you manage chronic stress. Cortisol management is metabolic medicine. Regular movement, time outdoors, genuine social connection, structured relaxation. These are not soft lifestyle suggestions. They are direct interventions against one of the most potent drivers of insulin resistance in modern life. Here is the practical starting point if you want to understand where you actually stand. Ask your doctor for fasting insulin alongside your fasting glucose and HbA1c at your next appointment. Most doctors only check the latter two, which are designed to diagnose diabetes, not to detect insulin resistance years before diabetes develops. Fasting insulin is the early signal. If your fasting insulin is above 7 to 10 units while your fasting glucose still looks normal, that indicates insulin resistance is already present. Also watch the trend in your HbA1c over time. A gradual rise from 35 to 40 mmol across several years, each individual result technically normal, reflects worsening metabolic control. The trajectory matters as much as any single data point. I want to close with something I say to my own family when I try to explain why this matters. The diseases that kill most people in the modern world, heart attacks, strokes, type 2 diabetes with all its complications, certain cancers, dementia, all share insulin resistance as a common upstream driver. Addressing it does not require extreme interventions. It requires consistent, sustainable adjustments to how you eat, how you move, how you sleep, and how you manage the demands of modern life. The key changes are deceptively simple. Build meals around protein and fiber rather than refined carbohydrates. Walk after you eat. Find ways to move throughout your day, not just in one focused session. Protect your sleep. This is not about perfection. It is about direction, about making better choices most of the time and understanding why those choices matter, because the stakes are real and the window for easy intervention is now. If this was useful, please subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I will see you in the next video.